Peace, 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 peace. Get in and get in and get in. I don't know. I think I'm gonna talk about a few topics here. I was just expressing to someone. First of all, let's give honor to the source, to the creator, that make everything possible. Shout out to you, a lot of you, everybody, wherever you are on your journey. Shout out to you. Most importantly, give yourself some grace, man. That's one thing I had to realize right now is give myself some grace through it all. I want to start off with something like that encouraging before I really dive into something real deep that's really going to could trigger and be, like I told y'all in my previous video, be like a threat to a lot of the powers that were, and also you realizing that authenticity cannot be threatened. So you being a threat in the sense of to shattering the illusions of things that people want to keep you in, or things that want to keep you stagnant and so forth, whether seen or unseen. So the encouraging message I want to start off with is that first of all, breathe, chill out, take a deep breath and breathe. And another thing is, give yourself grace. If you don't know what grace is, research it, look it up. Give yourself grace. When the last time you gave yourself compassion for how far you've come on your journey, no matter your age. Yeah, y'all getting real authentic. Our boogers and all. I don't give a fuck. But anywho, when the last time you gave yourself grace for where you are and how far you've come? No one's perfect in all of this. Or, we all came here to learn lessons. We all came here to learn something differently. We all have different perspectives on life. But when's the last time you given yourself grace? That was something I have been challenging. Been a big challenge for me as of now, where I'm at currently, is that not so focused on creating anxiety around, and I know a lot of us can relate to this, create anxiety around trying to be perfect, trying to show up for the world before we show up for ourselves, or trying to be there even for our kids or for ourselves. I know that's challenging. I talked about that in a previous video, but I found myself in cycles of things doing in the past, and even with being a father, but in the past, trying to naturally I gotta be there for everyone else and forget about myself, until I realized I was that hero for everybody, trying to save them from their karma, or trying to save them from certain things that they needed to learn, whether it's being more self-aware, being more self-sufficient and so forth. But then progressing into a place of now another version of myself of fatherhood is also remembering that. It's remembering to breathe. When you hear your child cry, or when you're trying to focus on oh my gosh, I gotta do this, basically still remembering not to forget about yourself, the bigger picture of how important your emotions is when you get up in the rising, how important it is for you to show up for yourself, no matter what throughout the day, whether it be an hour, or two or whatever, finding a way to remember to pour into yourself. So that's my encouraging message that I want to start off with. Again, is to give yourself grace. This version of you, the version of you now, you're not ever the same. Even when you get up and when you get up, there's a different version that's asked of you. Every time, every season, the seasons change. And I don't know if those of you that are into astrology or stuff like that, but those of you that are familiar with zodiac signs or whatever, again, this is just from my awareness. I came into the awareness that every zodiac sign holds an energy, and I don't just mean elementally, but I'm talking about a feminine or masculine, or yin and yang. And, by us now being we're in Virgo season right now, which is a feminine principle, that can pertain to you in different ways. A lot of what is important about this aspect is that it's asking a different version of you from whatever your perspective is currently in your life. it's asking of you a version of yourself where, for me, one thing that came up about me is I really had to give myself grace when I realized like how much, which I've spoken about, how much of a behavior pattern or patterns that I develop subconsciously that comes up. And I use this like like a submarine, like the feminine aspect into the conscious, like subconscious, conscious. So you can look at that as feminine, subconscious, like the dark aspect, things are unseen, spiritual aspect, to the conscious where you see it more on the physical aspect, that of like the light. So, and there were things that still was coming up for me where I had to like express to someone like, wow. And this is gonna go into another topic that I'm gonna speak about. But a lot of things that came up for me, is a lot of the behavior patterns from when, like from a child, being that I grew up around a lot of wounded women or women who naturally express their anger or embrace their anger and projected it onto, a lot of us as little boys that became men. And so this behavior pattern, this anger that we've seen so much of, allowed us to, there were times where unconsciously I didn't even realize that I was in certain dynamics or relationships where I literally would believe or have this core belief or this belief system of believing, appreciate it, of believing that being angry was normal, or always being angry, or always being frustrated with life, or always being, just having this, getting up and having this survival mindset towards life. And it really didn't hit me because, again, with this healing journey, or this journey of, some may call it spiritual awakening, but just being on what I may call like this holistic journey or healing journey, is that I realized so much of, like, from being around my mother consistently, or being around women that were wounded, that did not have a lot of respect for themselves, did not have a lot of that were in a lot of wounded state, in their femininity, that didn't really value who they were. And there were not a lot of relationships that they had that they really respected women. And there's a lot to go in with that. So what I will say is, like, when it comes to a lot of, when you talk about demographics where there is verbal, physical, or emotional abuse, even financial abuse, or abandonment issues and so forth, from my experience, I realized like certain connections that I had, I will unconsciously try to get a rise, or some may use the term gaslight, the woman into, even if she was nothing like this, gaslight her into getting a reaction, so that in a way will be a fulfilling way to feel like I have to, like, literally the dysfunction in assuming that was a normal relationship, or a harmonious or healthy relationship. And in reality, it was the opposite of that. And the reason I'm talking about this is that a lot of us have interacted or been programmed to believe that this is the norm. And, some of us even have suffered at the hands, or went through even partnerships or relationships young from our caregivers who were emotionally unavailable. And for me, is that from my experience, speaking from a man to a lot of women that probably don't know this about a lot of men, is that, not only how challenging it is, and I talk about things on levels. So on this, my perspective of just being a darker man, there isn't a lot of things that it encourages us to express our truth. There isn't a lot of things that holds a safe place for us to feel that we're safe or secure to even be ourselves, to be even in our divine masculine, or to even be even in our feminine. Because for us to be masculine as men, we have to honor that feminine aspect of ourselves, because we all are created or have been created in the process from that feminine energy which our mother has, both masculine and feminine. And depending on how she viewed herself was our perspective or our emotional how our emotions were going to be developed within the womb and when we came outwardly. And then, it goes so much deeper to where, again, I was in partnerships where I realized like I wasn't even aware as I was now, to where I was like, wow, I can see how so much of the deep programming of how a lot of young men who have this I guess it's the word, impulsiveness, or not. Impulsiveness is one, but I'm talking about impulsivity. I don't know, I'm making up shit, but it is what it is. But have this impulsiveness and so much passion, but have no management or of their emotions, or now knowing how to regulate. And I was one of those men. I was one of those young boys. Again, you're normalizing or assuming that, oh, I'm just supposed to be angry all the time. And there were times where I would rise up, or I used to literally see my mother like get up angry. And I know probably a lot of you can relate to this or know of someone like this. And it's like they would carry so much of their survival or their anger from the night before until the next day. And for me, it just didn't make sense. But naturally, from a lot of us women that probably don't know this, like a lot of men are naturally, or young men who grow into men, this what's this term, depending on their woundedness and what they develop young, it's natural for them to be what they call a mama's boy. And I was something, I was very familiar with that, because I developed a pattern from being around wounded women to try to be a savior for them, try to be a superhero for my mother, try to interject in her relationships. And in response to that, a lot of it also happened on the other end, where, some of us have dealt with wounded women or wounded fathers, mothers or fathers, who never feel like whoever your spouse or your partner is will never be good enough, because inwardly they don't feel good enough. And depending on what their upbringing has been, they could have probably had an emotional unavailable partner. So I'll give you this sequence, or like someone that I knew. It's like they grew up in a let's say single parent home, and their father was emotionally unavailable. Now, what a lot of people don't know, and you can research this, is that research and receive what resonate. Everything ain't gotta, I don't just get on here just to convince people of nothing. It's my perspective on this. It's to bring a more of awareness to a lot of, especially young men and men that don't know the depths of what they really are experiencing. And eventually when you get this age, when you get of age like 30, 40s, and get into this age of realizing like how much you have not been aware of like unhealthy patterns or unconscious patterns that you have picked up or been programmed to believe, and develop this core value or this core beliefs that this is how life's supposed to be, suffering, or become numb to yourself and the world, and not realize how important it is your emotions are as a man, and how important it is that you naturally are supposed to be emotional, and that's the feminine aspect of you. That's the hidden part of yourself that is valuable. And then also, in knowing that, you will attract or be in partnerships where, again, certain partnerships will reflect back, relationships, whatever you want to call it, these very things that you didn't even realize that you have uh, kept down or pushed away, and you develop in your childhood. So a lot of these topics I talk about is to bring awareness from my own perspective, from my own experiences, and and to enlighten those, especially like mothers who don't even realize like why their son's going through certain things, why they don't feel like they have this connection. And then sometimes even women who are unconsciously wounded and don't even know. And then some men, young men that are going to grow up, and then some men that may watch it don't even realize it. So it's really for everyone involved, or even people that would grow into come into this. So again, having dealt with someone who guardian was emotionally unavailable, and see this perspective, I'll probably like it's going to be to probably bring more awareness to a lot of women, is that a lot of women, like, let's say you had an emotionally unavailable dad, and like I said, you can look into this, and I'm gonna get more details on this because someone was sharing this with me the other day about how when you are dealing or have dealt with a father who is wounded, how could I like I'm gonna share this with you in a like spiritual and a more metaphysical way, like break it down like in a more internal and external way. So your father can show you, he can have all these nicks and nannies, to show up and give you all these things physically. He can have all the money, he can have all these things. But what most wounded men and what you see in the patriarchal and what has driven this patriarchal has a lot to do with, no matter the music, no matter whatever you look at, fashion, no matter when you look at the patriarchal, that means when you look at the totality or how men carry themselves, when you look at like the root, well, before we get to the root of the tree, but when you see what they produce and how they produce their fruit meaning how they share, or how they naturally or unconsciously expose themselves to women with what they have, like what are they leading with? And that meaning, like, for one, are they leading with emotion, impulsiveness? Are they leading with emotional intelligence? Are they leading with a sense of security within themselves? Are they leading with confidence? Or are they masking themselves and being leading with their money, leading with their that part of themselves, their lower self? Are they leading with sex? Are they leading with things like that? And I'm telling you from something I was subjected to, I experienced, and I also lived out to become to this awareness. So I'm not at all judging no one. No, I was also around these same men. And this is different perspective, because I'm talking about different demographics. Certain men are in certain areas where you have this crowd of men that's in this demographic where they see men who are wounded. They don't know that, but they see them leading with this survival mentality of like selling drugs, get out the hood, get my mama a house, blah 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 blah, make it out, play basketball, football, blah blah blah. But a lot of them don't have a lot of emotional intelligence or know how to manage their or regulate their emotions, because most of those men that have that survival mindset or that been in that demographic have been around wounded women who don't respect themselves, who do not respect other women, who do not have a sense of security, and even have spoken to their sons in a healthy way. So a lot of these young boys subconsciously take this on, and they lead with that mentality into whether it's drugs or substance abuse, which catches up eventually, or lead with that when it comes to obtaining all these things, whether they become some type of athlete and so forth. Because all of that stuff that's around there, like the root of it all, there's a wounded in a lot of it. But there's been this mask or trying to portray like there's so much positivity, there's so much great things that come from that. Yes, there is a polarity to it. Yeah, you can help people financially, but what I'm speaking about is getting to the root of what is ignored the most. Is that, okay, on the way to this boy who has probably seen so much that he cannot unsee, this young boy that has probably seen someone be unalive, someone see his mother get beat on, someone has seen a lot of these things that, again, develop repressed emotions, develop repressed memories, things that, as he can go out there and play ball, he can go out here and obtain all these things, but with all that spotlight, with all that attention on him, which he's not used to, then he still is in a place where his emotions and what really he loves to do. It's not to say he doesn't love the sports. It's not to say that, but deep down, that little boy within him, and this is not all, but this is what I've seen, and this is what I've experienced and seen majority of, and see the root cause behind a lot of what these boys and why this narrative is pushed for them to do that. Because when you're putting them in these situations, who's really winning when it comes to when you see the greed of even how they get such contracts? They get such contracts, and I mean, like, you know, this is my perspective. And for me, I tell myself, you know, I like to sit down with some of these athletes and really see, like, do you really get therapy, bro? What's really going on with you? What's your driving cause behind what you're really doing? And depending on, most of the time, their demographics, I say 90-95%, this is my perspective and my trajectory, or whatever you want to call it on it. Depending on their demographics, a lot of what is driving or is a driving force has a lot to even do with survival. And let's just say a lot of them don't even know money management, or don't know the importance of emotional, how to regulate their emotions. No, a lot of what fuels a lot of that stuff has a lot to do with them taking out or using that emotion and passion, all this fire, in these certain places, in these gladiatorials or gladiator, or, you know, in these coliseums, in these places, you know. And now that you're seeing the world shift and evolve, it's like, okay, but bro, what about your mental health, bro? What about if you get an injury, and I've seen this happen, and I know people, what about if that don't work out, bro? What about if, you know, it's not in your contract, it's not in your life's purpose to be the next this, or to be that? Like, and then a lot of them, which I've seen personally in the hood or in these places, they'll end up going to school and so forth. Most of them don't even have the funds, or their mom don't have enough to even pay for even if they do get a scholarship or whatever. So a lot of what's driving them is a survival mindset. And so that mentality can only last for so long until it creeps up to realize, like, that's not all there is. And then they're met with more repressed emotions and more repressed memories. And then what I've seen, a lot of them, they backtrack, or they not even just backtrack. They go right to the same lifestyle that they did not want to live and try to escape. They end up being in some type of gang, being affiliated with something that, again, because of things that internally that they were never talked to about, they never were counseled or had counseling about, they never had therapy to really get through. Not to mention a lot of them having to be their own man, to having to be the man in a home where they're single parents, they're trying to be their own man at the same time, having this resentment or disappointment when they don't make it, and this resentment towards a father that wasn't there. But then they're in this position where they're trying to be the man for their mother. Subconsciously, they don't even know it, and they're unconsciously doing it. And then the connection to the mom, depending on if she's wounded, that, oh, son, you got to naturally come back and save me. Save me from the abusive or my substance abuse. Save me from what I know I need to heal from, but I'm going to use you as a scapegoat type shit. I know that this is most of a lot of dark melanated men that are in these so-called leagues that don't talk about this. Because I am them. Just because I'm not there, I don't have no shame or guilt. It's just they don't talk about it. Not to mention, it's the same thing that goes for what I see like daily, like to where this is the healing that's happening in reverse. You know, being a voice, not just for myself, but for the people who don't. You know, I saw this post that said, what the two most dangerous people is that the people that knows someone that knows something that don't talk about it. And then someone that just talks about it that don't really know what they're talking about. And again, the world is changing. The world is evolving. I don't see those, I don't care what their age is. I don't care how much money or whatever it is that they're receiving. It's not an attack on them. I see your inner child, bro. I know a lot of cats right now that, you know, due to the programming and the spiritual warfare, as soon as they came out of the womb, they was given, you know, even just before they came out of the womb, they were just given the basketball, the football. Mom and dad vicariously lived their dream student because mom and daddy couldn't go to the NFL or to the NBA or go here and go there. And then guess what? When that son or daughter don't make it, don't be that doctor, don't be that lawyer, or choose to go a different direction or choose to live for themselves, then there's a disappointment. Then you see a lot of mothers and fathers attack and lash out because of their own deep insecurities. I've seen it. I've experienced it with families where people, they say they love you the most. As soon as you do something you love and you want to reconnect to your essence, they attack you, or they remove everything. They self-sabotage the relationship or the connection purposefully just so you don't succeed because they haven't succeeded. I've seen and witnessed the jealousy amongst guardians or parents who I was telling someone, like, they are given a blueprint just like we are. If you are a caregiver, you know, some of you that do know, you have been given insight on what it is your child is supposed to do here, just as your mother and father. And you are here accountable and responsible for that. Because we naturally inherit from our mother and our father, matriarchally and patriarchally. We inherit not just emotions. We inherit, some may call it generational curses, behavior patterns, whatever you want to call it. We naturally inherit that, not just from the womb, but we inherit it. It's also outside of the womb. We inherit these behavior patterns. We all have been like a sponge soaking up stuff since our childhood. So depending on your demographics or where you've been sitting there soaking up your mom, your dad, who did not make it somewhere, who did not succeed in certain things. This is not everybody. And I see it all the time. And you're soaking it up since you were young. And you don't want to disappoint them. You don't want to fail them. And see, that's been the biggest illusion, where we've been so focused externally on allowing other people to naturally be our creator or our God, we idolize people. And then now the world is changing. We don't realize the importance of, well, what about ourselves? What about me not disappointing myself today? What about me getting up, doing what I love today? Can I be at peace with that while other people are not okay with that? Am I okay with that? And this is why you're going to see a lot of people walk away from that, you know, those careers or those certain things that no longer serve them. It's because these corporations, these careers, no matter where you are, no matter what status, do not care about your well-being emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And a lot of you know, I'm talking to you. A lot of you know I'm there. I have the skill set to play in certain things and do that. And I used to reflect on this. I used to be like, you know what? No. I'm even more accepting the fact that maybe I am just the only one that really care about the youth. Because a lot of you are sitting there like, you know they don't care about your well-being. You have one injury, you have one this, they replace your ass just like that. Same thing with your career and job. They replace you just like that. Because it was never built upon caring about the people or being the service to people. Yep. And a lot of you fear the fact of walking away from your careers. I know who you are. I see you. Some of you are in these big places. Some of you have all this money, whatever it is. I know people who have so much that they'll sit back and they're so prideful and greedy and so self-righteous. No judgment. But they won't ever help other people, but they'll talk about them all day. But some of you have the fear of really walking in integrity because you're afraid of what they call losing it all. Or you're afraid of your colleagues or your people that you're associated with, certain contracts, certain things that, you know, because your life won't ever be the same no more. You actors, you so-called celebrities, you so-called whatever it is. And don't realize, like, once you give yourself grace, it's okay to fall from grace. Because a lot of you are falling from grace. You tell me this before I get back into this subject. I was telling someone, I said it amazes me how we live in a fucking world that will, you see these armored trucks with all this so-called money in it, right? They'll have, I think it's like 3 or 4 or 5 men in there with armed with, you know, so-called things, you know, tools to protect money. But then you see celebrities, these people y'all idolize so much, have so much security. And I ask myself, how secure are they in within themselves? What do you need? What is there so much to protect you from? Your image? What are you trying to uphold? My thing is, what is it that is needing to protect these certain people? When I know a lot of you y'all were birthed into this, but a lot of you that, you know, y'all have this wanting to be idolized or wanting to be people to look up to you. Kids to look up to you like they're below you because you have what? Because you have what? Because you in this position? Because you got so high and mighty on your high horse that you didn't think the Most High will come and judge the hearts of all? You didn't think that kids will come to the self-realization, or people will come to the self-realization that you aren't who you are, who you say you are, who you project to the world? And it ain't even just that. It's like, I wonder, I'm like, we're talking about a country that's so great, that's so free. And that's what's so scary. It's so free that people can do anything. And I don't mean just anything. I mean, like, how is it that we can have all these guns or have all these things to protect money, to protect these coliseums, to protect communities and so forth, right? But when it comes to our fucking kids and the youth, where are you so-called people in high places, celebrities, or whoever you are, where are you that, because this is what I do, I call you out, because I know y'all watch me, I know what it is, because this is the shift right now. This is where the ego depth comes in. Y'all gotta pay attention. This is where the distraction comes in. They're so focused on getting the attention. You know who you are. Rather than really empowering our kids to be who they are instead of focusing on you. How is it that we live in a place where, how the fuck can we have so-called school shootings? All these guns, all this so-called, this is the most powerful country, military and all this in the world. But how is it that you can't protect what's the most precious thing, the most innocent thing, which we all were at one point in time, in which we all, those who have some type of compassion or grace, where is the protection for the youth? Why the fuck aren't there protection for the youth who have been molested? Protection for the youth that are, you know, that the things that go unseen. Where's the protection for that? How is it that a school shooting is even possible in a so-called country that is the most powerful, has the most powerful, quote unquote, military. How is it that these things happen? How is it that we put so much emphasis on protecting politicians and people? You got all these fucking cars and all these people protecting these people, so-called people. I ask myself, who's really a part of what narrative? So you can't tell me you give a fuck about the youth or the kids. You can't. Who? What are you doing to empower them? And what I mean by that, it's like, that don't mean you got to be there. What are you doing to spread the message? What knowledge have you gained or wisdom to share with them? Whether it be your own kids or whether you go out to the community, what message are you spreading? And this is my message for y'all to hold these people accountable. Where's the grace for the kids? Because you know why? This is how far and disconnected y'all have been from your own essence and inner child, because some of you are soulless. Some of you that are of this status and stuff, y'all don't got so consumed. Be ye not of the world. It say be in it, but be ye not of the world. Pay attention to people who have got so consumed by their status. Their possessions, possessed by their possessions. Y'all don't give a fuck about these kids. Y'all don't. It baffles me. Y'all gotta go show how much you are good in the world. You gotta go boast and post about how much you're giving back, how much you're being a part of this charity. All of these illusions, all these distractions. That's what the Great Awakening, this Grand Awakening is about. There is nothing that can be hidden in the Aquarian age, baby. The great golden age, the greatness of how a lot of you have played such a bravo. Are those with eyes that can see right through a lot of you. What are you doing for the kids? And as we come into our healing and awareness and deeper awareness, it trickles down to them. This is why a lot of you know that your reign of terror is over. Your time is up. People know that. The end of times. People know that. So, going back to the other subject on a lot of you, let's say, because I had to get that out. But, a lot of you that have dealt with parents that are emotionally unavailable, or a lot of us have, some of us have dealt with, me personally, people who naturally embrace their anger. You have to realize, like, that was something that you didn't want to accept. You didn't want. But as wild as it may sound, I needed to go through that to be where I am today, to have the more deeper clarity and awareness of who I am. Because there's a responsibility that comes with when you do have kids. Your obligation or your responsibility is not just to yourself, but also, how are you being a bridge? When I look at, again, the demographic, seeing a lot of young men, like I said, it ain't about reaching everybody at once. I'm just a messenger. That's all. We all are. The Creator speaks through everything and everyone. But again, it goes back to, like, having seen that, and then now having mirrored back to me, like, when you're in connections with your kids or seeing certain things, like, what is it teaching you about you? How is it that your relationship with your sons, you mothers, what does it really teach you about your relationship that you did not have with your father? Some of you, again, manifested or created a son for you to have the responsibility of changing that narrative. You had a responsibility of empowering him for him to see the importance of his emotions, to nurture him. And I know it's challenging for a lot of you because, I was telling someone, speaking about how, and this is the grace you know, the divine was showing me and the compassion. It's like I can see why some mothers like are not ready for that responsibility due to whatever circumstances. And I mean like from being forced upon or being in situations where, you know, the father isn't there and they're having to step up for themselves and having to be in this hyper femininity aspect, you know, having to overly mother and don't even know unconsciously they smothering their son. I've seen it. I experienced it, having to be there. And that's why I had to give grace, because as much as I wanted to have resentment or anger towards my mom or why she treated me the way she did or why women treated me the way they did, not all of them, but just to even go through that, it brought the more awareness to it. I needed to, so I could share the message with the women now, to realize like, you need not to beat yourself up. For what? You didn't know better, but you can do better. And you can be better for yourself and your kids. And that's simply by just starting simple. Like, you don't have to just think that you gotta drop everything and just realize, okay, what I'm gonna do, because I don't know the situations that a lot of you are in. Especially again, living in a country where a lot of darker women, they don't give a fuck about you. And let alone you're around or being surrounded by women that don't even give a fuck about you as well, because they don't care about themselves. And as unfortunate as it sounds, it's because a lot of us have been wounded by our fathers. A lot of mothers, like I said, some of you have not had fathers there. So, and then what people don't know is that your father is how you develop your identity. That a healthy father reflects back that empowerment, that self-worth, your identity. Most people don't know things like this. It's like your father gives you that reassurance, or, you know, the mother gives you the emotional aspect, like the nurturing and so forth. So depending on if you grew up with a father, and depending on what he was, you know, what his life consists of, because again, you can have religion come into play. You can have a father that wasn't ready to be responsible for a little girl. You can have there's so many things. You can have a father that didn't want to have a child by your mother and purposely abandon you and then abandon your emotions in the process. There's a lot of women that went through a lot of this stuff. And then if you just having a father, not really having a mother, that could look different for a woman that had a mother and did not have a mother present. Like I said, I knew someone who did not have a mother present. Do you know how much it affects her? It affects the fact that she didn't know how to express her emotions. Because again, the mother represents where we develop our emotional resonance, how we develop and express our emotions, how we nurture ourselves, how we embrace ourselves. That's the inner most important part of ourselves, the essence of who we are. The essence of who we are comes from our mother, like that emotional aspect. That's that inner critic, that inner character that we have neglected so much. This is why the matriarchal is so important. A lot of us did not have these mothers that were healthy. And so they produce men that were also unhealthy. They didn't even realize that they had they unconsciously have been projecting and continuing this pattern through the same daughters and sons. Like I said, it looks different for everyone. You know, you had one of my things I was bothered so much by growing up is like, I used to watch TV and see big, huge families on certain shows. Or I used to see like mothers and fathers together. You know, you craving that as a child. Like you see, like, wow, a mother and father. That's how it's supposed to be. But then you're experiencing physical abuse, and it's like, sometimes TV was our outlet and savior, because that was the closest thing we could have got to with seeing something healthy, seeing people happy. Shit, you had some of us grew up around people who just grew up angry all the time, just because of their environment, just because of what they grew up in, and we were just scapegoats. And some of us had parents that did not even want us. So they abandon us purposely, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically. And here we are trying to recover. So I share my message to purposely encourage people. Your perspective and how you perceive it is going to look different than mine. Your healing is going to look different than mine. And so, again, seeing a woman that grew up just with a father, imagine growing up with a father that was wounded. He didn't know. Or even if he did, being emotionally available, it still creates an imbalance there because the mother's not there. The mother's not there to teach her the importance of to respect herself, to teach her about how to even wipe herself, clean herself, because a lot of fathers, they're not ready for that. How a little girl cleans herself, how she even goes through her cycles, that time of the month, how naturally little boys and girls are different, because naturally little girls are going to be more emotional because that's just who they are. They're very powerful. They're more feminine. It's not to say they don't have masculine energy, but they display that through their emotions, but it starts internally first. So naturally, I can see the balance between my sister and brother or certain things to where it's like, wow, little boys are more logical. So what has happened is that you see a lot of boys grow up with wounded women or been around a lot of women. And even what I was affected by, that I had to acknowledge and see certain ways of wow, I never seen, for me, it's so funny because Virgo is an earth energy and it's structured and very organized. And, depending on our upbringings and patterns, some of us, for me, I didn't really see a lot of structure. I remember growing up, I was going home from home. I remember specifically coming home, there were no lights. Coming home to, playing basketball, there were no lights, there were no one there. I would come home to an empty house with no lights, Come home to sometimes a refrigerator with no food. So a lot of those things is just you as a child, you're you don't even realize you're subconsciously believing this is a natural way of life. So what's wild is I was telling myself and telling someone yo, I got something to confess. I was I've seen survival so much, or I've been in patterns so much to where I'm thinking this is supposed to be in a certain relationship, this is how it's supposed to be. You get to that point where you allow things to go on for so long until that survival instinct kick in. Is it, how fucking dysfunctional that is? And I think a lot of us don't even realize that. We will get to a point where, for me, it's I was yo, from growing up around a mother, again, this is not to attack her, it's just to call it out for what it is. To grow up around women who never really had who have been emotionally secure or structured or have respect for themselves, it's unconsciously or subconsciously, I developed this belief system, this is how women should be, and then connected with women as such that are overly motherly or even though they're a woman and age-wise, still being in connections or were being connections where they will smother, they will baby the man in a way. And I was yo, and then that's when I realized the womanizing, the structure, seeing how we don't even realize how much we all have been affected. Even if you did not grow up in a similar environment, you're still going to be around people where the subconsciously, it or not, that have their behavior patterns or what they've experienced, they will express such behaviors. And you don't even know why. You don't even know why. There were times where, I talked about money wounds or financial wounds. It's because there were growing up so much, some of us were so dependent or codependent on mama and then what she was receiving for governmental structures and so forth, to where we never seen her really be secure in herself or be confident. And that has a lot to do with a father wound, because a father naturally, depending on if he's wounded or not, he will be what you see a lot, going back to a lot of men, they will lead with money. They will lead with certain things rather than being confident and carry out integrity. Really showing that, oh, I can go through this, whether it's an entrepreneur, whether it's something where I can go through this, but at the same moment, can I really be honest with myself? Can I really be honest with my tribe and family and say, look, this is where we are, but we're going to get through this. We're going to be confident. At the same moment, it's like I've seen this displayed so much, because this is where you see the comparison. And what they say, comparison is a thief of joy, where you got men and women who just because, and this is where the division comes in, the ego and all this shit. It's like you will see people naturally, and I've seen people do this growing up, compare their lives to someone else. They'll even use terms like, well, why you want to be successful, or why you want to dress like this and do like this, I'm just saying this is what some people, that programming is like. Why you want to be white? Why you want to be like, and their mindset is so stuck on survival or just struggling. As if you're not supposed to live a harmonious or prosperous life or abundant life. So, again, it's wild, because again, a lot of people will never know the depths of what they really go through, because it's been so fucking psychological, bruh. Like, the psychological warfare is whoa. And I feel like now that a lot of us are breaking that illusion or spell from that. It's like, yo, you can be great at whatever you want to do. You can live within your own means. You don't have to have millions. You don't have to have all these other things. You don't have to burn yourself out. And again, I've seen, growing up, seeing people burn themselves out. So as soon as I'm in this place where, again, people don't know what a divine masculine is, or don't know what it is to heal. They don't know what a divine feminine is. They don't know what it is. And it's the opposite of, their woundedness. It's the opposite of what they're used to being in. And so that's what becomes like, an attack on their ego or the fantasy that they're living in. It's like, soon as a lot of us start to live out a life to where we're a fulfilled life. Again, I've seen so many people, they're going out there burning themselves out, do certain things, and that's all there is to them, but it's like in an unfulfilling place. So I had to really sit back and observe and, see how people will purposely get angry and mad, because, like, you're mad at me because I want to heal, love myself, to face generational, behavior patterns and break generational chains. You're mad at me because I want to speak my truth, because I felt like I've been silenced when I was young, or felt like I didn't have a place to feel safe. So now I come here and I want to express it and feel confident in it. I want to be confident in me learning to be an entrepreneur, or me be confident in creating my artistry in so many different ways, not be limited to certain demographics, certain places, certain mindsets. And it's like, yo, it's wild, man. So, again, it's shit. This shit, man. Again, like, let me get back on topic to where, again, it's different perspectives of how the wound, or in itself, the healing can happen for a lot of us. It all depends on, like, if you most likely grew up in a single parent home, and depending on looking at the world right now, and just looking at, like, how the viewpoint, if you look at how women and men are viewed, that will tell you a lot right there. It's just how we are viewed. I don't even succumb or subscribe to how they view men in this world. I don't give a fuck about it, because that's not me. None of that describes me. None of that. And so again, I had to recognize my own behavior patterns, and seeing what I grew up with women, and realize, like, again, I didn't see a lot of women that really took responsibility, certain patterns. So me, let's say one thing that's big for me when it comes to security, not just externally. Again, let's say, like, you know, I know someone who had a father that gave them, they can give you the world. And it's just like you see with men now. Yes, a man can give you the word, they can give you all these things, but if he is not in tune, if he is not aware of himself, his behavior patterns, and what he has experienced with the women, that is his idea, that is his image that he holds. If you're not aware of the image that how men, even their relationship, not just with their mother, why they're going no contact, why they don't have a relationship with their mother, and or, the women in their family. A lot of us don't have the talks with men about this. Me purposely, from my experience, I choose to outgrow, or I choose to be a better man in the patriarchal aspect as a man, to learn myself more, to see why I developed these certain patterns, to see why what I need to break generationally, to see why, if having a son, the importance of him, like, I wouldn't want you to date women like that. That's another thing we don't talk about. It's so much bashful and so much projection on how men are naturally looked at as the aggressors, when women are aggressors first too sometimes. And this is not a point finger, I'm calling it out. Why is it men can't be looked as victims as well? I'm not saying play the victim, but why is it in certain circumstances that we're naturally looked at as the aggressor and women are not? Again, the viewpoint on men and women is so fucked up and so dysfunctional. It's so imbalanced. And I've been wanting to say this. Having just a son, period, or anything with that, it's just like I wouldn't ever, seeing from what I experience internally, seeing where I'm going as a man, and seeing what I'm leading with now, seeing what I led with in the past, but seeing what I'm leading with now, it's like learning from it, knowing what I know, and then seeing the wisdom. No, I wouldn't ever, just like some people say, I wouldn't ever want my daughter to date a man like that. I wouldn't ever want my son or sons or kids to ever date certain women who parade themselves in a fashion of having no sense of morality, principles, or even knowledge of themselves. And the reason why this is so vital is because now I see the importance of even the partnership, even a partner you have in your life, because that is going to be an outlet or a bridge to how your generations that come after you. Does that woman love herself? Does that woman want to heal? Does that woman want to grow with you? Is she aware of her behavior patterns? Is she aware of her father wounds? Is she also aware of her mother wounds? Because if she's not aware of her father wounds, that father wound will show up in how she interacts with her son or my son. And see, this is the bigger picture from it all. What do we bring the bridge to? And when you see, again, what the old world, the powers that were, and certain things, the healing has already fucking happened. The light is here. It's okay to start where you are and give yourself grace. And give grace to those people who you went through that shit with and so forth. But now the sun is here. Even after the storm of your childhood, even after the storm, there still are great things that you did experience. Because I don't ever want to point the finger, but like, I didn't have great memories with this person. But when I look at a lot of people, I did not. And so respectfully, from my experience, to protect myself, what's the scariest thing is that when you have kids, it's like you want to protect your inner child now. As you heal, there's an inner part of you, your essence, that you realize, like, wow, as I face these traumas, as I face these things, there's a part of me that no longer resonate with these people. Because I know, because I'm not going to be gullible, I'm not going to be, naive and be like, that those people still they don't have respect for themselves. They don't have integrity. They don't love themselves and so forth. So it's an expectancy there to know that they still are going to, if they don't treat me with respect, or if they try to mask it just to get close to your kids, eventually it will be revealed. The mask will fall off. So that's the thing, again, as there are women and men that are being called to heal, to face generational things, to be able to look at their lineage and realize, like, I am here to change this shit. It stops with me. I will not continue this behavior pattern. That's what a generational curse is. I will not continue this cycle of financial abuse. I will not continue this cycle of, like I said, men can give you everything. But what I told myself, what about facing the things within myself, seeing the importance of emotional intelligence so that my son can be aware of his emotions? So that your daughters or sons or whomever, when they arrive or however it comes, so they can be aware of those things that wasn't given to you, wasn't shown to you. That's the thing when you change your mindset and mature, when you grow within, not just outwardly, because you can have all this shit on. But the new way of life, the new world and so forth, the Aquarian age and all this shit, you can't hide that. It's either in you or not. It ain't about it being on you. And we've seen a world where it's just been on you. Yeah, you got all these accolades, you got all these trophies, you got all this shit. But what does that mean when you really come around me or people that are in tune, that are empathetic, that are, really have grace and compassion for themselves and other people? What does that shit mean when you come around communities and kids that really not look up, but they look towards people who are walking in integrity and in authenticity, and then they no longer look up to you? Because that's the thing about falling from grace. It's a difference between seeing the people that fallen from grace because they allow their ego or they got consumed by this shit here when none of you can take with them. What are you teaching kids? Oh, you gather all this shit and take it with you? No. We're teaching kids that the gift, the new world is that we're teaching kids that the gift has always been you and in you. So you can have all these things, yes, but remember that you are the gift. You are valuable no matter what and who comes around you, no matter what they pull up in, no matter what they come with, no matter how they approach you. So again, what are we discussing here? Things are changing. So again, I can see the wounded masculine in a lot of these men, no matter their status. I can see you. And that's why the discernment is I can see you. And that's for a lot of you women too. As you come into your healing, as you become aware of who your mother is. Accept that. Of who the women that you used to be surrounded with, that did not have respect for themselves. And you knew that they didn't have respect for you. You deserve to be around women who see themselves and will see you and will not judge you for your past, who will embrace not only you, but see the importance of embracing your kids. And like I said, that's a process, because you got to be very careful of the world right now. Be very discerning, because as you tap more into yourself, as you heal, your discernment will heighten, your intuition will heighten. Again, wounded women do not know the importance of intuition. Wounded men don't know the importance of intuition or discernment or awareness. Giving you something that, again, gems, let me give them to you. I'm just a messenger. What are these people gatekeeping? They act like they got so much, like only thing they got to show is their material shit. They act like they got so much. What secrets do you have? You want to know the secret? You are the secret. Because they know who you are. They see who you are. And the secret is, once you realize that you're the secret, that means, you know how people make something a dish and they use that secret sauce? Because it's you. A lot of us are the secret sauce to this shit. Everything. You're your own vibe. And once you start to tap into that, it will naturally trickle to your kids. They already know what they came here to do. But are you going to corrupt them? Are you going to continue to corrupt them? This corrupted ass society, come on now. They're desperately trying to push the narrative. We're not in those days no more pushing wounded shit. Kids going out here harming themselves, or we're not pushing that shit no more. It is what it is. I don't want to push that. That's not me. I'm not that man. I'm not finna push that. I've seen people go through stuff like that. I actually, my mother deserves to heal. Women deserve to heal. Y'all deserve to heal. Y'all deserve more than reparations. No amount of money, so everybody not the same. Y'all deserve that love in return, to be embraced, to be accepted, to be valued beyond what can be given to you. Y'all deserve that. And it's coming, it's here. The judgment, the balance, everything has been restored. You shall be restored. This is why I'm delivering it to you. You have always been loved. You have always been gifted. It don't matter if you got one arm. A lot of you, it don't matter. Don't matter. Every woman and every man, every child, everybody, no matter what you have physically, you still are valuable in the eyes of the Creator or the Most High. Everyone has their purpose here. Everything out here has its purpose. But what no longer will happen is this bullshit narrative of thinking that a lot of you are in these places that are going to keep preying on our kids, that they have to be dysfunctional, that they have to be like you, and you're not even like that. A lot of you not even like that. You're not like that. Some of you dudes need a hug. Some of you dudes need therapy. Women too. A lot of you y'all don't even know how to receive love or embrace it. Shit, I was there. I'm talking about, I used to see my mom get up so much, so angry. I ain't judging her, but shit, it took almost 20-something years to hear my mama say, like, I used to tell her I love her, but to hear her say she loved me back, or even just the fact of like her to be more affectionate. I'm telling you, and there's nothing against her. You talking about a woman who grew up or were in like most of her life. Like when I was young, you talking about being in abusive relationships. So some people programming is to believe, and this is what you see around here. What the fuck you think is pushed in the media? That's another thing too. A lot of y'all don't even pay attention. Like this shit don't do nothing but enable the shit, the traumas inside of you. And you don't even know how to regulate the emotion when it come up. I'm telling you, I was there. I would sit there. Sometimes it got so bad to where I was literally, it's like it was an addiction to dysfunctional shit. Even though I wasn't around it, I get up, I be like, and you used to see this shit on social media. Like you'll see a fight come across. You'll see like all this shit come across your screen. You don't even be looking for it. And sometimes you do, you just be like, I mean, look at all this shit with the celebrity, all this other stuff. It's like they're so desperate on pushing to want our kids and us to focus on these dysfunctional ass shows. Wounded ass women. Women that don't know how to stand up for themselves. Y'all know the shows I'm talking about. I ain't even finna give them no clout. These shows that just don't, that they keep showing y'all that women that don't know how to stand up for themselves, have respect for themselves, and men is constantly treating them like certain things, or even, then you see the abandonment because they talk about the kids as involved with it, and we don't even realize how much this shit has been going on for so long. And you see it in the media, and you see it in the shows, and it's fading away. Like it gotta have its moment before it all fade away, because the healing is here. And that you're gonna realize, it's gonna hit you. You're gonna realize how deep them fucking wounds go. Whew, let me tell you. Like I told you, there's certain things I learned where I did not see structure so much to where I thought that, I'm gonna tell you some real shit before I go. I'm gonna tell you how deep this is. This probably gonna hit a lot of people, bro. You could have grown in different demographics, bro, to where you really thought that growing up in a house that where if there wasn't certain things being slammed, broken, and so forth, you thought that, like psychologically, this wasn't normal. Then it's just like this. Ooh, I could use it. It's just like people that develop PTSD or whatever you want to call it. Let's say anxiety. I don't know. Whatever you want to call it. And I'm talking about to where you go somewhere, go to another country. People that go fight these so-called wars or whatever, and they come back and they got to sit with those memories. They got to sit with those repressed memories, emotions, and so forth, because they've been so programmed to do these things. Then they come back and their life is the complete opposite of that, and they got to sit with that shit. And they lose it. Or they giving medication. Or they giving stuff to numb it. Not really having a therapist. And they're pushed out into the streets. And they left, it's just like a child, no matter their age. These so-called veterans, they're pushed out. A lot of these people, they're pushed out. I speak to everybody. I don't just talk about certain shit. I'm talking about there's no difference in a child growing up in a motherfucking war within a home. A spiritual warfare that their mama going through, that their father going through. Then they grow up. They don't even realize, like, oh shit, this shit didn't really leave me. Then you get up, then you create a family, you create a tribe and all that, right? And you sit up in a home. Why the fuck is it so quiet? Then when you're sitting with yourself, you're secluded, you're isolated. Some may use the term dark night of the soul. You sitting with yourself and all this shit comes up from your childhood. You'll sit there, be doing something. I have times where I was sitting there, like, I'm telling you, yo, this how deep wounding goes. I'll sit there, and after I departed and left from something, like, literally, again, having to cut off certain people that no longer serves me, does not mean that repressed memories and emotions does not come up, yo. I'll be sitting there creating a masterpiece, and I'll have a memory of something in my childhood. I was bullied so much, and I realized it's like, for me in my experience, I had to defend myself early. I had to tell my partner, I had shit coming up to where I remember I had to grab my grandmother's belt, and I came across a video on social media, and it's like we make these parodies and we make jokes about our fucking trauma, and in reality, ain't shit really funny about it, bro. Like, I saw a video where the guy was like whooping a child. You know, he was displaying it as like it was him being a child and him swinging the belt. And yeah, it was funny because people was on there like, oh my gosh, I went through this too. Oh my gosh, y'all. And he swung and he grabbed a belt. Do you know that shit brings up repressed memories, bro? Or when I grabbed a belt from my grandmother and she was so pissed that I did that because she felt I deserved to be beaten. She felt I deserved to be whooped. And some of us, and I'm telling you personally, where I had to come to the awareness of why I had so much rage and anger towards the people I felt, because now I'm at a place now. I told my partner, I said, here I am now, most likely bigger than everybody who bullied me, stronger, like physically. And today to day, like literally try to use my gifts, you know, to breathe and allow these repressed memories and emotions to come up and not want to lash out, be revengeful, be vindictive towards these same women or men who bullied me when I was young. I mean, I know them firsthand. I've been jumped before for no reason, just because I didn't want to give up my bike in neighborhoods that I grew up at by like 5 or 6 people as a child. Bully young. Like I told you, my first video, like I told you, my first bully was my mother. And how people don't see, like they like I seen the video and it brought up that. They brought up like people on there like, dang, you see the comments from most likely people that are darker and melanated. And it's not to say, because everybody, like, there's other coaches too that get spanked and whooped, whether they get smacked or whatever, they get punished. And punishment can be in different ways, y'all. Abandoning your child emotions. Abandoning them in certain ways. Shit that we don't even realize, like, bro, I didn't even know that this was still a thing. So I'm sitting here, I laughed at it. It was funny, but that's the dysfunction of where we think like that shit is a joke. But then when we're met with the fact of like, you got people who don't even realize, like, they'll laugh at that. And then later on in that day, they believe in actually still whooping their kids and don't even see the programming in that shit. Don't even realize, like, it's on you to break that generational curse of being an abuser. That shit is deep. And like I say, I'm not trying to be perfect or nothing. I had to gradually come out of representing to where I have to decide I am no longer an abuser. I have to enable a healthy patriarchal, a healthy man. That shit ain't easy. Because the emotions that come up around, I'm used to seeing women embrace their anger and project it onto me as a child, to where it brought up so much having a daughter who expressed her emotions. And I would be bothered by the fact of, like, it brought up for me, like, what do I do? How do I go about this? You know, it brings up so much to where it's like, you don't even know you're met with shit. To where, do I abandon her, walk away? Or do I, you know, like I tell people, it's like, I told my partner, I said, some of us that have had kids or have a will, you can be in a two-guardian, two-parent home, right? But some of your wounds or certain things are so deep to where you don't even realize, like, let's say you grew up in a single-parent home, but then you create a two-parent home, right? And what can come up is the fact of you don't even realize, like, if you grew up in a single-parent home, that'll bring up all the wounds and all the memories of you not having that balanced home. And depending on if it was traumatic or wounded, it'll bring up those things. It'll bring up those very things, those memories, those things that if mom or dad wasn't there, depending on your upbringing. That's how deep that shit goes. And then some men are not even ready for that. They're not even ready for a little girl. That's why a lot of them want to have a son. A lot of them want to have a son because they're not ready for those. It becomes overwhelming, but they're not ready for those emotions that their daughter has. Because it's so big. And you know why it really triggers us? And I'm telling you that what most men will not admit. The reason why it's so triggering for us is because our emotions was pushed down as little boys. We were taught, you a bit, you weak, or you da-da-da-da-da. You got to be tough, don't cry. And then you see us grow up now, 20s, 30s, and 40s. And then the only way we express our anger and emotions is towards sports or towards each other or towards, you know, gangs or some shit like that or substance abuse when we don't know how to manage them. So we try to numb them. Yeah. That's what I'm here for. And it can look different from a woman. Don't let me go there. Because a lot of women, they're coming into their power, don't even realize, like, your emotions have always mattered since you were a little girl. But depending on if you had a mother who just only showed her emotions towards you and projected it onto you, it didn't allow you to express it. So your emotions for you could be like, well, do they matter? Do your emotions even matter in your relationship or in your dynamic? Do they matter? And then not to mention in a world or in demographics where a woman is not even held to a standard where she is even seen as valuable, or her emotions or her opinion or outside of her anatomy, anything sexually, if it's not anything of that, then she's not important. So I spread my message because the shit that comes up for me as a father is to realize that my daughter will learn what it is from her mother to be secure emotionally. And this is why it's so important for women to know who they are, because your daughters are going to learn from you what it is to allow your emotions, how to honor them, respect them, and nurture herself and men and women. Whatever the women she's around is going to teach her how to interact with women that are healthy or unhealthy. And the thing that brings up for men is just like, you're seeing this both. And a lot of you don't even realize that every individual, whether a child or you or your partner, you're all mirroring back or reflecting back some type of mother and or father energy or feminine and masculine energy. Yeah, it goes that fucking deep. Because this is why a lot of men they will have so much favoritism towards a son, because if they're wounded, they'll do more protecting that son and then really showing up for their daughter. And then you'll see mothers too do the same thing. Or they'll try to be tougher on their sons. Well, let me say that. Let me go back. Actually, I meant to put the daughter there. Depending on their woundedness as a man, if they're seeing their mothers treat little boys, or they see the disrespect, because it can go so many ways, y'all. If they're seeing, like, if they're wounded, it's naturally for a man to be a protector for their child. But what most people miss out on is that you can protect your child spiritually by seeing the importance of letting your daughter know that you are here at a point in life. You will create life. You will bring forth life. Let her see the beauty inside of her first, rather than keeping a narrative going on what you see these women who just display their bodies from a lower place, or just displaying the fact of, like, this is all there is. You're not valuable beyond what your anatomy. No, that's bullshit. We're here to change that, men. That's why you see in the music like that. That's the only thing they talk about. Getting a woman. And when you look at it, it's like either sexualizing them, over-sexualizing them, coming from a wounded place, or even coming from a place of like womanizing. Because a lot of it talks about that. Drugging women, all of that shit. Then if the men that is wounded, depending on their upbringing, depending on their music, they'll push a narrative on other men to encourage them to unalive other men, to encourage them to what? Focus, be driven by, lead by money to get a woman, lead by your penis to get a woman. Come on now. You don't know. So again, depending on if that man or woman is wounded, sometimes we unconscious don't even realize what we're doing. That's how deep it goes. Depending on that partner or person, do you really know their backstory? Because whatever they went through with their father or mother plays a major role in what type of father wound or mother wound that they have. And that's going to show up in different ways. If that woman did not have an emotional supportive mother or unavailable mother, then she's not going to be as expressive as you think she's going to be, bruh. She's not going to know how to express herself. She's not going to know how to show up. And most likely, she's not going to have respect toward, depending on if she see her mother respect men, she's not going to have respect. And that's what you see out here. She don't have respect for herself or men. Same thing with men. Depending on how they seen brothers and stuff or uncle and daddy them treat women, they're going to carry that same narrative, whether they unconsciously know it or not. Hey, I'm just a messenger, man. Shit, you can be angry. You have a right to feel the way you feel, no matter if you're triggered, if you receive it or not. It is what it is. It don't stop. I'm just getting started. So, again, this is why a lot of men want to have a son, because they want to project onto them, bring them up in a way that they feel it may seem righteous to them, until they really come to awareness of like, man, you know what? Do I really want my child or son or daughter or son to go through that? Do you? So the great thing is like a lot of us, whether you have a partner that's aware of this or not, again, you still can start somewhere. There's still someone out there for you. I'm not saying seek these things. Like, go within yourself first. We were not taught this. Like I said, I can sit on all levels where I said, seeing how a girl can grow up with an emotional, unavailable caregiver can come up in different ways. A lot of these women that I've seen, most of them, have been around a wounded mother. And so their respect for men is not, reflects just a father wound that their mother had. They didn't know how to do, they develop an image or this identity through a false sense of what a mother or a woman should be. They know nothing about nurturing. They know nothing about, they're wounded. Their femininity is wounded too as well. And it's the same for men. How they show up has a lot to do with what they experience. And so the reason why you see the world neglecting kids is because we neglect our own inner child. That's all I'm going to say. Peace and blessings. Shalom.